Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Halsey Live. We have one of our favorite guests today, James Lindsay. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
I am actually losing my mind quite a bit. Like with
Hmm.
what's going on, I've always maintained that I'm dealing, I'm coping, whatever you want to say, and I think I'm like losing it a little bit.
Hmm.
I feel like I don't know what's going on. Um, Everything is not what it seems, but I can't tell if we're winning or losing when it comes to the battle we're fighting here in this country. With Iran, I'm fine. I think we're doing just fine with that. But I really don't know where we're at. Like, what do you think?
I've felt that way at least since the start of the year, maybe since the end of last year. And I've kind of like entered this phase of acceptance that I just don't know what's going on, and that's totally okay. Um, and it's like I don't know. Um, I'm I mean, maybe this is a quirk. I put something about this over the weekend on X. Maybe it's just a quirk of the moment, but I'm probably the most disenchanted with social media that I've ever been. I used to travel out of the country, and I used to a lot. I mean, I still do, but I used to go to like China, where they
Mhm.
have this great firewall, and so for like 2 weeks at a time, I couldn't get on X, and when I would come back, I could never figure out why people were on it, and then I would get sucked back into the vortex after
Mhm.
about another 2 weeks. But I could like palpably couldn't figure out why people would get on it. And then as long as there was continuity of use, I knew why. It's like it just was obvious why people would be on there. And now I did not go out of the country or behind a firewall. I did not ever stop using X. There's not been a single day that I haven't looked at it. And yet I have that same disenchantment. I'm just like, I don't know why people use this. Like, I'm almost positive that online discourse is mostly fake.
Mhm.
Almost all of it's retarded. It doesn't actually accomplish stuff. It's like almost pure magical thinking that you're going to go on this box it lives inside your phone and spout off with your emotions, and then the world's going to change as a result. It's
Right.
like idolatrous prayer or something. And so I'm just got this really weird, like, I open X, I see what amounts to just rank bullshit, and I'm like, this is not an interesting place to be. The people who are, I mean, no shade. There are a lot of people I like on X, that I've connected with on X, that I work with, that I've met, et cetera, that are all fantastic. We all know what I'm saying when I say something like this. The vast majority of what's going on there is socially awkward, mentally ill people talking about politics because they don't have better things to do in their lives. And everything would be better if we were doing better things with our lives. Like what Tucker Carlson said on his podcast, just to be one example, is totally fucking irrelevant to all of life. No one should need to care about this at all. But it's like I read this article. I think it was in the Atlantic or New Yorker or one of these stupid leftist things.
Mhm.
One of these thinky places, probably 10 years ago. I don't remember how long. It's a long time ago. But the
Right.
headline, and I don't have it. I've never seen it again. I've never really gone looking for it. I should. It's probably a stupid article. But anyway, the headline was, the problem isn't Twitter, it's that we take Twitter seriously.
Right.
Right. And I feel that like to the deepest reaches of my bones now. It's like, why are we taking seriously the spurging out of foreign bots and 16-year-olds with nothing better to do, and drunk housewives that don't have anything better to do, and podcast addicted lunatics who don't have social life? Why are we taking these people seriously? Why do we live in this? So I feel this deep into my bones. So maybe that's the same thing you're going through,
Mhm.
but I'm happy because I'm just like, I just won't. I'll just tweet, not pay attention to what happens, and go outside. And literally, I mean, springtime, it's gorgeous. I'm outside like hours a day, every day. And so like I don't have that like, oh no, what's happening? Oh no, are we gonna, I don't care.
Right.
It's like it's there's one other piece to it which normally would be demoralizing, but I think I like went through hell and came out the other side, which
Mhm.
is I don't think I can do anything about it. So it's like you can be miserable about that, or you can go outside and like plant a tree or whatever it is that you do in your garden, or go work out, like is what I usually do outside a lot. I got a carpenter bee problem. I've been working on my bee problem. It's more interesting than this.
Yep.
And so it's like, I don't know. I've kind of come out the other, it's like all of this is it feels all ephemeral. And like we're mostly just wasting our time frankly jacking off about political stuff and world events. So I'm kind of in weird peace. I'm really peaceful about it. It's kind of cool.
So I have a couple things. One, me and a mutual friend of ours, we talk about this all the time. I think it's a legit addiction. Like the way people act with X is the way they act when they're an alcoholic. Like it's kind of wrecking your life. You know that you're not getting any benefit from it. You know that it's not bringing anything positive. You just can't stop.
Well, it's
And
because you hope the positive thing is over the next two tweets or whatever,
right, exactly.
like implicitly.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like, I mean, I'm sure you've heard the term slacktivism, right? So
Yeah.
I remember, do you remember when Boko Haram kidnapped all those girls in Nigeria and everyone was putting up their Facebook picture that said, bring home our girls or whatever, it will bring back our
Hmm.
girls. I remember, this was a defining moment for me. I opened up Facebook and there's Michelle Obama with a sign that said, bring back our girls. And I'm thinking, bitch, who are you talking to? Like the man who could do something about it is in bed next to you. And you're putting a picture on Facebook as if that's somehow doing something. Right? Like
Yeah.
but Twitter is 1,000 times worse with that. It's that, and I say this all the time too. We're creating our own enemy on there, because the people like the Tuckers and the Megyn Kellys and all of them, half of their interaction is just foreign bots, right?
Hmm.
But the other half is us. Is they like the real interaction, the real account growth they get is because every time they post something, people like us rush to tell them what retards they are and why what they're doing is false. And 90% of their actual real interaction with verified accounts is us. It's
Yeah.
like we're
Uh,
building what we hate. And it's not like they read what we write, you
so
know?
part of why I've gone clear on this is because like I actually saw this with not only did I read about the left complaining about it with their own stuff, but I've watched it happen, which is they have a phenomenon. Maybe it's a more general phenomenon. I don't know, but the left complains about it and they call it activism fatigue. Like they're mad at their activists because they like won't BLM long enough. Like people will only go out and BLM in the street for about 18 months and then they're just tired of it. It's like it's stupid and they quit. And they'll only like drag queen for so long before, I mean, obviously like the mentally ill that are really into it are going to do it forever. But like you need that cloud of, college girls that's just going to show up and protest or whatever. And there's this phenomenon, it's called activism fatigue. And people are just like, it was a phase. I got over it. And
Right.
so like we all rush to go scream at Tucker or Megan or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But because they're not producing something of edifying value, that actually dies. It dies on the vine.
Right.
And so I feel as though I see that happening. Like these characters are not interesting anymore, except like right now, this Laura Loomer going after Candace Owens thing is kind of like sizzling, and it will be for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
But it's ultimately it's not even that it's drama. It's actually that they're not producing, they're just doing propaganda. They're not doing anything interesting. The
Mm-hmm.
bubble has kind of burst on them. And so what'll happen is, the phenomenon you're describing is real, but it's like it's got a real shelf life on it. It just gets more and more boring over time. Reacting with outrage to Tucker Carlson while Tucker Carlson hugs himself and rubs his own body and looks very uncomfortable while he talks about horrible things it only lasts for so long. And I'm seeing people gravitate away from social media. The stuff I'm saying is not revolutionary. Every normal person I know is saying, I basically go on there to see if there's anything and I log out, and I spend people who used to spend a lot of time on X are basically spending a lot of time out in the real world or with their friends. They're not looking at it anymore. Or if they're still, phone addicted, they're looking at something else because the
Mm-hmm.
place just isn't interesting. It's not that it's toxic. I thought it was toxic. It's not toxic. It's boring. It's
Yeah.
absolutely idiotically boring. The algorithm feeds you stuff that's supposed to make you mad. It's not that fun to be mad all the time. And it's just become boring. It's like the running joke is, oh, yeah, let me guess. It's the Jews. Okay, can we talk about something more interesting than it's the Jews at some
Right.
point? And the answer is most people, the answer for them is yes. And they've just checked out. And that's a downward spiral vibe for the entire platform, by the way, because the interesting dynamic stuff goes away. So this is kind of how I think I've ended up going clear, is that it's like it stopped being important to me, but I'm also realizing that it's not important to people kind of on a wide on a wide range in the way that it was even a year ago. It's become boring. It's repetitive. The second you open X, you know what you're going to see. You're going to see some religious person somewhere pissed off about something stupid. You're going to see Tucker Carlson ranting about the Jews. You're going to see Candace Owens spinning some new damn conspiracy theory and beefing with somebody who's got her, dead to rights. And you're going to see some Christian nationalist chud talking about how Hitler probably had it right. And it's just boring. And you're going to see ridiculous numbers like, oh, that got I saw a Dan Blazarian post, and it was a screenshot from Instagram. The guy was saying, I logged onto my Instagram, I scrolled down past my follows, I got to the suggested for you, this is the top post. It's Dan Blazarian standing there, just a picture of him standing there like in a suit with a weird haircut and his stupid square beard, and 199,000 likes. Like, bullshit.
No.
Just bullshit. We're sick of this. This is stupid.
It's not only
200,000 people did not give a shit about that guy.
But you know what? I think there's, just so you know, I'm right with you on this. Like, I used to do at least one Twitter space a day that I hosted. I used to go on all the time. I barely go on anymore. Like, I've done one Twitter space in the last week or so. Like, I can't take it. It's like, I think about it and I'm like, you know what I could do right now? I could go for a walk and I will benefit 1,000 times better, and I won't get any DMs. Yeah, I won't get any DMs telling me, why are you platforming this idiot? Or why are you arguing with that one? Or this one really is this. It's like, if I go away, and real quick, before you make your next point, this is like the one, remember the last time we talked, I said, I'm afraid Twitter's going to spill out into the real world. It is, but in a better way than I had hoped. Because now you have the Fishbacks and the Bilzerians and all of them running for office because they believe Twitter is real life. And we're now able, like, when we told people, no, these people are like, they may or may not be Nazis. That's irrelevant, but they're morons. It's not that they're like, sure, they're hateful people and that's a problem. But the real issue is that they're completely stupid. So it's like, okay, this is what our enemy is. Like, this is what we're up against. Like, bankrupt losers who are just trying to stay out of jail, who can't do anything but blame Jews for their life. And they're running against accomplished, like, politicians and getting crushed. Like, it's like the good part of Twitter spilling out, Yeah,
absolutely. What I was starting to say is, I said this about video games, right? So, and I get so much shit about this every time I talk about it, because people talking about drugs that aren't actually chemical substances. I get it. You want to play your video games. I'm not even telling you whether you should play video games or not. I don't care if you play video games until your freaking thumbs fall off. I don't care. Maybe you go blind. Great. I don't care. Have a great time. Be Batman today. It sounds fun. GTA, whatever. Woohoo. World of Warcraft. I'm a dark elf. Yeah, you're so cool. I don't care. I just tell this story about why I stopped playing video games. And it's a very interesting phenomenon that happened. And it's what you said about going for a walk and it benefiting you. I was playing World of Warcraft. I wasn't one of those people, but I was kind of into it. I wasn't like, I wasn't like raiding into it. I was like, but I played. I had some high level characters, and I was shooting fireballs one day. I've told this story a bunch of times. I had a female human mage called Algebra, which I thought was a funny name, and I was a math PhD student. So like, okay, so I'm shooting fireballs at like fucking crocodiles or something stupid. I don't know, crocodile pirates or something fake. And all of a sudden, it just this thought, sometimes thoughts just bubble into your brain. And to just boop, in came this thought. I'm spending all this time making this character awesome because grinding at the high levels in that game sucks. It takes forever, right? To go from like level at the time 46 to 47, which wasn't even all the way at the top. I think 60 was the top at the time. To go from like 45 to 46 or 46 to 47 was like 2 days of solid doing stupid repetitive stuff. You go to some place you don't really want to go because it has the monster that gives you the good thing, and you whatever, and you have to do like 1 billion of those. And I'm like, I'm spending all this time making this character awesome. I said, I'm trying to become awesome by proxy. That was actually the phrase, awesome by proxy. And I could be spending this time improving myself. I could be outside working out. I could be training. I was into running at the time. I was trying to get my mile time under 5 minutes. Spoiler alert, we did not get there. I did get down. I got to 5:30. I never got below that though. My legs just weren't going to have it. But I did get to a 5:30 mile. I was trying to get to a 5-minute mile. I was like, there are a lot of things that I could be doing that are better uses of my time. Instead, I went back to shooting my fireballs at the crocodiles or whatever the hell it was. And all of a sudden, about 35, 40 minutes go by. I'm still doing my little grinding. I didn't even there's some log out procedure that you're supposed to do or whatever. I just turned it off. Like I literally just pushed whatever key to open up the thing and hit the X. I didn't log out. I didn't do whatever you're supposed to do. I just quit. The only time I've ever played a video game since then was one time when a bunch of my friends from when we were kids, we all got together over Christmas and we grabbed one of the Super Nintendo or whatever, I don't remember, games that we played as kids and played through it again together just for 3 days and drank beer, which we did not do when we were 10. It turns out the game's a lot easier when you're an adult than it is when you're 10, which is its own. But that's the only that. And I got addicted to Candy Crush at one point on flights and I had to break that addiction completely. But other than that, video games have zero interest for me, right? And it's the same thing. I feel like social media, I've seen 6 or 8 people say this past week. Twitter is a video game. Twitter is a video game. Twitter is a video game, or X is a video game if you'd rather be Gen Z instead of Gen X. And so it's that vibe's happening. There are people who want to play the game, and there are people who are I could plant hydrangeas. My yard could look good. Hydrangeas are not that expensive, and they look fantastic when they bloom. And wow, so I have this very positive experience. You're totally right. You could be going for a walk. People are like, James, you're on there a lot though. And I'm like, yeah, guess what I'm doing? I'm going for a walk. And my whole philosophy for a while has been, if I can sit and tweet, I can walk and tweet. And so I'm usually outside doing something and walking around, and a thought occurs to me, and I take my phone out and I type my thought and I push send, and then I put my phone back in my pocket and continue to walk. And I don't read the comments. Maybe when I come in, it's a totally different. Sometimes I totally come up on a campaign or whatever. I come up with a way to modify graphics, and I'll do 100 of them. It'd be like, James, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm walking. It's just having fun. I don't care. Right. But anyway, the point is, there's a psychological break that comes from this stuff. And you're totally right to your other point, which is that this is spilling out into real life in the funniest possible way.
Right.
Dan Bilzerian or whatever running for office is genuinely kind of hilarious.
It really is. And you know what's even funnier about it is his whole thing is get all the Jews out of this, Jews out of that. Randy Fine sponsored a bill that dual citizens should never be allowed to take office, and Bilzerian is a dual citizen.
Yeah,
which is it's the best, And you see, I'm lucky with the video games thing. I have shitty hand-eye coordination. So if I have to train, I shoot competition, I'm a gunsmith, I'm a blacksmith, but I have to work really hard to get good at those things because I have to overcome the fact that I have shitty hand-eye coordination. So in order to get good at video games, I knew I'd have to put a lot into it, and I just wasn't willing to do it. So I can't enjoy video games because I suck at it.
You suck, and then the question is okay, I could get good at this, and for what?
Right.
Right. And for what? And and it turns out there are some good answers to that question sometimes in the video game universe. There just aren't that many very good answers to that question.
So someone asked me from the chat.
Maybe you're 20 and you can become a drone pilot for the USAF or whatever, right? Sure. Maybe you're Kyle Rittenhouse and you played enough of whichever game it says he said he played to where you can save yourself from a skateboarder. But he was also a gun enthusiast and at the range all the time too. It wasn't like he was playing Call of Duty, I think is what it was. It's not like he played Call of Duty all the time and picked up an AR for the first time in his life and managed to save his own ass. He was already good with a gun independently of playing Call of Duty constantly.
Right.
So, but other than that, we're starting to run out of I did this on Timcast back when Tim didn't hate me for absolutely no reason. And
Tim hates you?
Oh God, Tim hates me big time, and it's the most nonsensical thing in the entire universe. He started hating me because I blocked Carl Benjamin on X one time. No, well, I mean, he slanders me pretty regularly anyway. But so I was on his show and I said this thing about the video game, and he was like, what about civilization? I played Civilization. And he like had this whole spaz out about how important civilization is, like teaching you world history or something. And like, you can learn military strategy. And I'm like, yeah, I played, what's the one with the space people?
Blizzard, I wouldn't have the slightest idea.
I don't fucking know. They had the little pylons. You have to get pylons for your energy. I forgot what it's called. StarCraft or some bullshit. Star Wars. I don't know. Some nerd stuff. And yeah, cool. You learned some military strategy, playing Risk. Bam, Ukraine is joke to you. Ukraine is game. You know, it's like, it's fucking, hey guys, do something with your life.
Also, if you're learning military strategy, it's not like you went to West Point. Like, the people that actually get to use military strategy are not learning it from video games. They're learning it from going to the top war colleges in the world and fighting.
Correct, like John
wars.
Spencer, who spanks these guys' asses on every single thing to do with the wars that we're actually involved in, or that Israel's involved in, or whatever, the Gaza thing. Like, he just absolutely bulldozed Dave Smith on basic urban warfare and strategy in war. Just bulldozed him. And Dave Smith, like, of course, this is why it's boring. It's like, we know what Dave Smith's going to do. He's going to yell. He's going to say, what about dead children? He's going to say, I won the debate. He's going to dance around like a pigeon, and he's going to shit all over something. And then we're all like, what else? We're all dumber for the
experience. We're all dumber for the experience. Yeah.
If you don't debate me, you're a bitch. Okay.
I'm a bitch then, I guess.
I'm a bitch. Whatever. Get a fucking life.
So someone from the chat asked me, and I don't know if you're into this, so I'd like to see if he's saying this for a reason. It said, I'd love to hear James's opinion on Promethean Action Group claiming London is the real culprit of all of this. Is this something you've gotten into?
I mean, I read Richard Poe's book, and I've, you know, I read, what's that guy's name? John, what is it that wrote the Committee of 300 or whatever? What's that called?
I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember his name.
Coleman or something. John Coleman, maybe?
It could be.
Anyway,
I wouldn't remember even if you did say it.
I read these things and I find them intriguing. I think it's to think that like these major insurers like Lloyd's of London are not involved in giant globalist things that can make them lots of money and secure power for whatever their interests are. To believe that they're not doing that is kind of crazy. But to think that it's like the story with no other, like Xi Jinping is a part of the story, guys, and Putin is part of the story, and it's not all like London is powerful, but it's not all powerful. It's not that powerful. It's funny. Coincidentally, I was reading as I do. I was reading Mein Kampf yesterday, actually putting together some more podcasts about it, and this chapter 4 of the first volume, which is called Munich. So it's telling about his time in Munich and the realizations he has, which means he's just left Vienna and he's like looking at Austria now in a different light because he's in Bavaria, and he's like, Austria is basically a bunch of Cracker Jacks and it's racially poisoned with the Slavs. What is Germany doing? Why did we ally with them? And he starts having like this spaz out about population growth, and it's ultimately the justification for Lebensraum, right? So the idea that we need more room for Germans and less room for poor people and black people and stuff. And so I'm reading this though, and he's got this whole segment where he's talking about different possible strategies. And like, when I say segment, I mean, it's like a third of the chapter in kind of the middle, and just down from the center. It's not quite the center third. It's a little further down, but it's like a lot. And he's going on about, look, so if we do this, Germany only has kind of 2 options. One is to ally with Russia. The other is to ally with England. And like, both of those are really bad options for Germany because we're caught in the middle and we're not that big. But it starts talking about this idea of like economic colonialization rather than military or physical colonialization. And he's like, it was suggested to the Germans that we use the British model, but the Brits did this and this and this, and the Germans have too much basically integrity or too honest to do that, was his argument. And so it's like, you know, this is I don't think Hitler is like the best source in the world. The kind of thing in the world that the kind of thing that I'm deriving from this chapter is that he's correct on many things in the narrow sense and wrong in the broad sense. So it's like he gets certain facts right about how parliaments work or about whatever, And then he has the completely wrong conclusion about it. He understands that, for example, when in this chapter, that when a country stops fighting for, ideals or a way of life and starts fighting for economic interests or protecting its bottom line, it doesn't have what it needs to fight a war and win. Right. So he's right in the narrow sense, but he's wrong in the broad sense, because he thinks, well, okay, we're going to collectivize around the race, and that's going to give us the essential core that'll cause us to win if this ever comes back up. And it turns out history proved that he was wrong. But the point is, I think he's right in the narrow sense that the British have been mucking around in this kind of economic manipulation, and that their world power status, especially as physical empire declined, that their economic manipulation as a means of maintaining their stature and power in the world has grown increasingly more relevant to their strategy. And so, and I don't disagree fully with like Richard Poe's thesis, which basically rests on this. The same idea. Or I think, like I said, John Coleman, I think, is the Committee of 300 guy. And he's talking about how, the Royal Institute for International Affairs was set up. It's the Chatham House. It was originally in league with the Council for Foreign Relations, but because of various legal issues between the two countries, they separated into two organizations that don't really work separately from each other at all, and that those two kind of coordinate the grand strategy of everything. And I feel like it's a little too much fig in the pudding, but the pudding does have fig in it, if that makes any sense.
No, it does.
And so I'm not by any means like an expert on this hypothesis. I've read a little bit. I would think it's dumb to think that they're not a significant player on the board, but like, I don't think that they're actually the puppet strings pulling, Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin around to orchestrate a British world order from behind the scenes. There's other players, even other royal families in old Europe that are competitor models to that as well.
So I think I don't think, again, that London is in charge of Putin or Xi. I think that they're actually a completely different entity. But America has perfected this model, and this is why we have the empire that we do. Our corporations, if empowered by the government, are a faceless entity that is able to commit acts of war without being tied to a country or declaring war. So an example being like one of the main tools of American imperialism is the World Bank, right? A country comes to us and says, I want to build roads. We say the World Bank will give you $10 billion. We make it impossible to actually build those roads. So the $10 billion gets spent on corruption and all of that. And when they can't pay, our corporations come in and buy their state assets, whether it be their mines or their water companies or whatever it be. And it's been successful. Maybe we could call it evil, but it's been successful, right? Because when you do things in the name of the state, there's someone to hold responsible. A corporation is a nameless, faceless entity that's owned by a million stockholders. So even if they do something evil, you could just say, well, we'll punish them with a fine or whatever, because there's no individual you can hold responsible. There's no government you can hold responsible. So the British model has been very similar, because they do not have the military might to enforce their colonial kind of power around the world. It's hard, because I have these discussions with tons of people. Some people, I usually say City of London. Some people will call it Davos. Some will call it the Globalists. Some will call it the Democrats. They're all kind of the same thing. They're just this idea that you're not going to accomplish anything by starting a fight with anyone anymore. In fact, that's going to probably be to your detriment, because the world has moved away from the classic war model, because you only have powers that are strong and powers that aren't. And very rarely are two strong powers ever going to go to war with each other. But very often, one very strong, one very weak power are going to go to war. And then it doesn't seem like a war. It just seems like an ass kicking. Right? So when that happens, you can hold them responsible. Like if China invaded Taiwan, right? We could say China is invading Taiwan and we need to protect Taiwan, and we can create an entire military issue out of it. But China, I've said this from day one, they don't need to invade Taiwan. They just need to put in enough money to elect a China-friendly government that's going to say, we'll sell you the superconducting chips that are the supercomputer chips you want, that America says no. And then they're happy, because that's all China wants. They don't care about the little island and running the island, right? They just care about the fact that the economic output that comes out of Taiwan comes to them as opposed to primarily benefiting the West, right? So they can wage war without needing to invade an island and sending their army into a meat grinder and possibly even ending with kinetic action against the West, right? So with the economic model that London employs, it's not that it's the all encompassing, all dominating model. It's just that Europe, because of their lack of military strength since World War II, has resorted to shit stirring. I mean, they did it before as well, but
Yeah.
like France gets in trouble in Vietnam, they call us, we come in and get bogged down in a quagmire in Vietnam, and the French start selling both sides weapons. So they made out like a bandit, whereas we got 100,000 dead soldiers. You
Hmm.
know, and I think that the reason this is coming up so much now is because the shit stirring in the Middle East is stopping. Like the countries that have been shit stirred against each other are walking away from this model.
Yeah,
And
of
then
course.
you saw Syria fall, Lebanon is getting online, the Palestinians have been utterly defeated. Iran is the last one,
That's
right?
right.
And that's why you're seeing the Arab world, like they've always hated the Shia, like that's Hatfield McCoy shit. But
Yeah,
you've also seen Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, all these countries, they're modernizing. They're deciding
that's
that
right.
it's much easier to modernize and make people happy and give them a way to earn a living and keep them passive that way, as opposed to just saying it's Israel that's the reason for all your misery. It's the lack of Islam. That doesn't really work anymore, and it doesn't have the desired result anyway. It just results in 9/11, you
Right.
know, and they hate them
Right. And
just as
well, not
much.
just not just 9/11 though. It also results in having your countries full of a bunch of yahoos that'll blow up anything you build.
Hmm.
Um, eventually too. And so, what do you do with them? Send them to Canada and Europe, I guess, and then you can modernize. But no, I think you're right about the shit stirring model, and that in the Middle East, that's the sun is setting on that
Hmm.
approach. The Arab nations don't want it. Iran, of course, is the lunatic holdout.
Hmm.
Iran has also been, we'll call it, a little dinged and dented in the past 2 months, and
Hmm.
so their ability to still sponsor the shit stirring that they've been sponsoring and to export the blame onto Israel is starting to
Hmm.
uh, fall pretty thin. None of their allies over there believe it. They all know what's going on, or their former allies, I should say. The Arab states. I don't know if they're allies. The Arab states uh, aren't buying that crap anymore,
Right.
and the only people who are really buying it are stupid psyops Westerners
Hmm.
who think that for whatever reason that they've all fallen for this leftist psyop that the existence of Israel itself is the provocation that justifies the Arabs doing whatever it is that they do, and the Iran doing whatever it is that they do against them, and therefore, when Israel then decides that some F-35s are going to answer that, and some tanks are going to answer that, and I guess the D9 is in the news now, is going to
Hmm.
answer some of that, then oh, that's Israel being the aggressor. I actually had a lady telling me the other day, it's like Israel has started wars with 8 different countries. And I'm like, Israel, as far as I know, doesn't start wars with anybody. Like,
Right.
I haven't seen them start a war. I don't know if they've ever started a war, but they finish them, by God, and they really do finish them too. And if they didn't have some golden handcuffs on them, sometimes I think they would finish them better. But this is what you're actually also saying, though, about the nature of war in the 21st century, really since Vietnam, honestly. The I say this, a lot of war, I've talked to actually John Spencer about this, and we had a little bit of not a disagreement, but we kind of haggled it out a little bit. Not clear, maybe I'm wrong. My hypothesis is that the instrument of war that has changed warfare almost more than any other is the camera. And
Hmm.
the idea of cheap photography, where you can actually show civilians war, and not just show them war, but show them war out of context.
Right.
So that the kind of propaganda that you can produce now absolutely soils the public's stomach for any kind of kinetic conflict.
Hmm.
Absolutely ruins it. I mean, even pretty small things like the thing that when what was it in Gaza where a tank shell had knocked the steeple off of a church or something.
Right.
Turn into these international incidents that have massive ramifications. And it's like anybody who knows anything about this stuff is kind of like, what? This is stupid.
It didn't
But
even
the
wreck
thing
the
is,
church. It was like a ding on the church.
right, but you go back to even the 1950s, 1960s, before Vietnam's kind of the breaking point where this started to happen. But cheap photography has changed the nature of warfare completely, and the ability to deliver cheap footage out of context immediately anywhere in the world has completely changed. I'm not a fan of the postmodernists by any regard, but this is why I actually did a podcast going through a fair amount of the text of Jean Baudrillard's book, The Gulf War Did Not Take Place, because his argument is stupid and leftist, but his argument is based on the idea that's actually kind of profound, which is, yeah, sure, there's a real conflict happening, right? There's a real war happening. Maybe it's in Lebanon this week. There's really fighting. People are really dying. Buildings are really being blown up. Planes are really, firing rockets or whatever it happens to be. But what the people see, the thing that gets called the Lebanon War or the Gulf War or the Iran War, is a TV production.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a thing happening, and then there's the thing you're shown, which is a completely different thing. And that thing in the moment that we're in now is so, I mean, you might as well be producing it on on like a, Hollywood set. It's so contoured. It's literally a reality show where you take a bunch of people and you let them live in a house and all kinds of things happen and there's shit stirring happening. And then you film them almost all the time. And then you clip it together to fit a story you wrote before anything even happened. That's like literally the reality TV model. There's a storyline that's already written. They film people until they get the pieces they need to tell the story with that. And they're in this house and they're not allowed to see what's being broadcast. So they don't even know that it's a different story. They think they're just living, this conflicted life in this very artificial situation. Same thing with war. So there's a story that the media want to tell and the politicians want to tell and that the propagandists want to tell and that the Iranian government wants to tell and that the communists want to tell. There are these stories. Russia today has a narrative. They know what the narrative is. And then it's just plug and play to get pieces of footage that were scoured from the internet and everywhere they could get it. Or hell, I mean, today we've got those guys, these Iranians that can swim like freaking dolphins, machine guns. They got 3 hands, one hand holding a machine gun, 2 hands paddling. They're basically like doing whatever, the hydrofoil on their dicks out of the water. It's unbelievable, these guys. I'm scared. But you got AI, in other words, being infused into all of this now too. And it's just fake, but it turns the public stomach is the point. So warfare, yeah, the Moab is a pretty cool bomb, and yeah, those whatever they are, HK 271 or whatever bunker busters are pretty amazing. And yeah, we all know about the nukes, and we don't even know about the like rods from God and all this other stuff. Who knows? Maybe they're talking about UFOs all the time, which means they've probably started to debut some new high-tech fighter jet. Yep. And they want people to think it's UFOs. Was it the F-47 for Trump? That's kind of badass. So they've got these, 6th, there's probably 7th gen fighter jets that are out there testing or whatever. Maybe those are striking things. We don't even know about it. And we just don't have the stomach to deal with the fact that it's happening because we're being presented with a story constantly online. And that becomes a more powerful weapon in some sense. The Chinese call media warfare or public opinion warfare, and their 3 warfare strategy.
Think about some of the stuff that they've accomplished, though, because they have some examples where they've taken a narrative and turned the whole story on its head and then turned it into a successful model. South Africa, okay? Apartheid, I don't know many people that say apartheid was a good thing. But there were a dozen different ideas that were being floated on how apartheid could be ended. The biggest one being split the country, right? Like people can't live together, split the country, let them each have their thing, economic development for the underprivileged, and everybody's good. They leave out the terrorism. They leave out the idea that the communist bloc in South Africa, who were anti-apartheid, were also blowing up buildings and blowing up people, and people were dying. And they got so tired of it that the South African government gave up and ended apartheid. Yay, we ended apartheid. That's so amazing. South Africa has turned into a shitstorm since then. But if you ask the regular person about it, they have no clue. Like
Yeah,
in
right.
fact, there was a foreign minister in Australia who offered the white farmers asylum in Australia if they wanted to come, and the public uproar about how racist that was to offer them asylum in Australia made him cancel it the next day.
Yeah,
He
that's right.
literally had to withdraw it because and why would you have to withdraw an offer of asylum to people that are getting killed, regardless of their race? Like that's nuts. But they're able
Yep.
to control that narrative, and they believe they can use it over and over and over again.
Well, that's
Like
why you feel the way that you do about everything right now,
right,
by the way. It's because we're not just in one of those narratives either, by the way. We're in like 6 of them at the same time, some of which are synergistic and some of which are competitors to another. So it's like being in like a double slit wave experiment interference pattern of all these different psyops type narratives that contour our understanding of the world in a way like what you just said, where there's an obvious problem, there's an obvious solution, which is to grant asylum to people who are being, killed, threatened, murdered, etc. in that way. And you can't because that would be racist because some,
for
crazy
some odd
narrative.
reason. Yeah.
Right. And it's the same thing. Like I had somebody today come at me on the X. They were like, "Are you saying that genocide is a psyop?" And I'm like, yes, because that's literally the psyop. Actually, is that the things that Israel's doing to defend itself and maintain its security are a genocide? That is the psyop. That's not real, guys. That's the narrative. That is a contoured fairy tale that has convinced people in their feelings, not in their logic, that they have to go hard in the paint on a political position that just makes no sense to the reality that they actually occupy.
Right. And again, it's the fact that it's so selectively used as well. Right? Like this IDF soldier who broke the Jesus statue in Lebanon is going to prison for 30 years, and it got as far as the head of the like the prime minister of Israel apologizing for it. Listen, I'm not condoning it. I don't think it was a good thing. But at the
Was it
same
30 years
time,
or 30 days? I think it's 30
30
days.
days. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Sorry. 30 days in jail. But for some reason, the Christians being killed in Nigeria, not a story. The Christians being
Right.
killed in Syria, not a story. So,
Right. And I mean, I get it because I agree that a principle should be against destroying religious icons of any religion. I understand that. And I don't want to
mhm.
see Christian icons destroyed. I don't want to see Jewish icons destroyed. But like, if you look at it from the perspective, I mean, what you have is probably a couple of young soldiers who are doing something stupid. Maybe they have some bad feelings, but it's like I don't know if you read their religious book about what it says about graven images, and this is like pretty straightforward on what you're supposed to do with them. Like God very clearly tells the Jews it is one of their mitzvah, one of their duties to destroy what they believe to be a graven image. That would include a graven image of a Judaic figure, not just of other religions. Or, in fact, a graven image of a Judaic figure is now not Judaic any longer, right? So they're commanded there. Plus, I mean, if we want to play the victimhood game, which nobody should be playing anyway, what this thing was a crucifix, right? And I get that. I don't want to see Christian religious iconography destroyed, but it's a crucifix. A crucifix symbolizes the Catholics. I'm not saying that you're right or wrong about liking Catholics or whatever you want to say, but I know that a lot of Jews feel like the Catholics were pretty shitty to them for 1,000 years and might have a little bit of built up
Anger.
irritation.
Right.
Yeah, anger. 1,000 years of things like Inquisition, right? And it's like they're a little like
On edge.
uncomfortable with
Let's just
that.
say
Yeah,
on edge. Yeah.
yeah. And so it's like you have a young soldier who makes a stupid decision and it becomes a giant international incident. And like you said, Christians on Palm Sunday being massacred in Nigeria, nothing. You can anywhere you go where you have like basically Islamists wiping out Christians, there's virtually zero outcry from
Hmm.
any of the people who go bananas about what appears to be a not particularly well-made Jesus statue in Lebanon getting axed. And so this is like you said, it's there's these narratives and they're They're selective because they play into the Marcusian victim mentality, the ghetto populations. They identify subpopulations that feel minority, that feel aggrieved, that feel cheated. And the game becomes, as Lenin put it in What Is to Be Done in 1902, to send the agitation and propaganda into those classes in order to inflame them. And in fact, Lenin says you send the agitation and propaganda into every class, not just those. But Marcuse is talking about these ghetto populations, he calls them. He says, like, the workers are stabilized. So we don't have to talk about workers or racial minorities or feminists or any of the specific categories that Marcuse is talking about in his complicated thing that people can't follow called generalize and then respecify. But we're going to generalize. And you say, he called it ghetto populations. So what are they? Those are people that are not fully, at least they don't feel like first-class citizens. They don't fit fully into the paradigm. America is a legally secular, Protestant culturally nation based on Judeo-Christian principles, whether you like it or not. Deuteronomy is quoted on the Liberty Bell, for God's sake. And so, okay, so we have that, and we have this background, and Catholics don't always feel like they fit in all the way. They feel like they've been persecuted. We've had 2 Catholic presidents, one of whom was murdered and one of whom was Joe Biden. And ain't nobody too happy about that. The Pope, for the last couple popes, has not been doing a great showing. This is kind of an embarrassment. They have a lot of reasons to feel kind of angsty against Protestants. I grew up Catholic here in the Southeast, where it's very heavily Protestant. I heard the Mary worshiper thing, even though I didn't know what it was. I got asked all the time, as Protestants would ask, are you saved? I was Catholic, therefore I didn't know even what that meant. I was like, I don't know what that is. Then the kids at school were jerks to me. I get it. It is actually true that Catholics sometimes get kind of like beaten around the ears in American society. They're a minority religion. But that set of feelings is the thing that's being targeted. The contouring of the narrative is to find those groups and their, white knight champions out in the broader population, and to target them with the agitation and propaganda in order to inflame them. Just like how in Australia, there's this tiny Aboriginal population, proportionally speaking, but that's the group upon which so many Australian sentiments have been turned. So therefore, when you start talking about white farmers from South Africa against the Aboriginal, it doesn't matter that the population demographics are literally reversed. And we're talking about an extraordinary situation that's happening there with violence and danger. It doesn't matter. They just hear white, black, race, oh my God, racist, and the narrative works. So it's always feeding into that spot of inflammation with the intention of making the inflammation worse. And this is the hallmark of like propaganda. This is the agitation propaganda that Lenin said is what is to be done. And why are we getting it from the pro-Palestinian or the Shia from Iran? Because the same model was put into that world too. This book, Milestones, by Saeed Qutb, is the kind of intellectual guide stone to the Muslim Brotherhood. I haven't done anything with it yet, but a guy recently sent me something. I gotta look into this, and I might end up publishing it if it's solid enough. But there's a very strong case that the Islamic regime imported Qutb's stuff into their brand of Shia, in IRGC specifically. Okay, so what is that book? What are the milestones? Well, milestones are things you find along the road to tell you where you're going, right? And he says right in the first chapter, the introduction actually is blah, 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 what is to be done, blah, 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 blah. This book was modeled after Lenin's What Is to Be Done. So when you start talking, we don't have to talk about, was it Soviet agitation in the region? Yes. Was it Nazi stuff? Yes. Was it, this radical Islam thing that kind of erupted out of Arab inferiority complexes? Yes, it was a lot of things. But what you had was this guy come along in the 50s and 60s preaching the gospel of Vladimir Lenin's vanguard model with a program based on the exact same structure to inflame these people. And so what kind of propaganda do you expect? Well, their model is what is to be done. So what do you think they're going to do? They're going to look and say, well, what did Lenin say about what is to be done? What is to be done is to send the propaganda into every stratum of society, every class, and to make sure it's got the agitating potential. And of course, that it inverts reality and so on and so forth. And so what a surprise that this is what we're dealing with. And we're always going to see that. All of these narratives will always follow that same exact bias, which is find the group of people who can be agitated and then agitate them. Find the little smoldering, ember, pour kerosene on it, get the wildfire. And so this is what we see. This is why we hear phrases like "no Jews, no news." This is why with the soldier, the IDF soldier hitting the statue of Jesus with an axe. I think it's an axe. It wasn't a hammer, but I'm not positive what the device is that he's holding in his hands. I think it's an axe. It looks like an axe. It's pretty brutal.
I don't know. I didn't see. So
yeah, but it's irrelevant, really. Hitting it with something trying to destroy it. So you have this, and some I-10 Fishburger put out like an analysis and was saying there's like 339,000 posts on X with this thing within some block of time. But if you go back to the Nigerian Christians, it's like literally just like a four
handful.
figures, just barely 4 figures. And it's like, okay, you can see that they want certain stories to blow up. Things like Russia Today, etc., are going to amplify certain stories because they want them to blow up, because they want that aggrieved group to come into contact with something that will agitate them. They're spraying the kerosene and hoping that the ember is about to open X. And of course they do.
So this has also been a very long strategy with the white population in America. And the reason being is the white population doesn't fit into a victim group. And there have been people on the right who've tried to lump them together to say that anti-white discrimination has caused X, Y, and Z. Therefore, we are now an aggrieved victim group. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. No one perceives it that way. So you had white people that would group together as gay. You had white people that would group together. Well, now the new one is they're grouping together as Catholics. And if you'll notice, the ones that are the most aggrieved have been Catholic for like 10 minutes.
That's right.
So, but
it's almost like a sliding scale, like it's an inverse proportional graph, right? How many days have I been Catholic versus how mad am I about something on the internet?
It's the truth. I mean, like you even see it with like people like Nick Fuentes, right? Like he fought for white identity forever. And then when the cop showed up to his door because he maced that like 80-year-old woman, what was the first thing he said? I'm a Mexican.
I'm not a white supremacist. I'm a Mexican.
Right.
That's the word for word exact quote.
Yeah, like
I'm not a white supremacist. I'm a bitch.
Right.
What he actually said.
But again, it's we're seeing this narrative, and again, it plays stronger. Social media feeds into this 10 times worse. That what gets you ahead in this world is by being able to be part of a victim class, because it takes away any responsibility you have for your own future. You can say like, I would go to college, get a degree, and get a job, but I can't because I'm a victim of Jewish success. I'm a victim of discrimination. I'm a victim of anti-Catholic bias, whatever you want to call it. But it's honestly just like a loud excuse to be lazy. You know?
It's so. I read a thing a while back that said that basically human beings are kind of always looking for two things in their psychosocial circumstance. So those two things are, what group do I belong to and why is my group better than other groups? Right. And so you can judge that as kind of pathetic if you want. It seems to be just a fact of human nature. There's probably some small percentage of fairly spurgy people who don't feel the need to belong to some huge group for whom this doesn't apply. But most people, most of the time, who am I a part of, and why are we better than the other groups? Okay. Well, there's a back door to number two, which is a third characteristic, which is what groups is my group justified in hating,
in absolutely despising.
That's right. And therefore scapegoating, blaming, and whatever. And when you start to get into that space and you start to realize that what that provides is not just a common enemy by which they can bond, and apparently humans bond around fighting a common enemy more strongly than any other thing, which is really scary and sad, but also a fact of human nature that we all have to account for in how we approach things. But secondly, like you said, it gives them the absolution of everything really, responsibility being key, but guilt, shame, all these feelings of inadequacy can all get channeled into we're actually the superior group, but we can't get ahead because the evil group has contaminated us, held us down, corrupted corrupted the system, whatever.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no better example than the Cold War, right? Is that America was a fairly united nation, like during the Cold War, because we had a common enemy and we weren't at physical war with that common enemy. So it was a war of ideology. Like you could always, like, whenever there were hippies, you could just say, "Oh, they're hippies, they're communists," and then the majority of the country would go, "Ew, disgusting." Then the curtain fell, and now everyone had to figure out how do you unite a country that for the last 50 years has been united against communism. Well, now we won. So how is it that we're going to be able to keep people looking at the news, to keep people interested in joining the army, things like that? And again, there was a study done, and Michael Crichton actually cited it in a book he wrote about this stuff, that in 1989, when the curtain fell, the media narratives that started using words like catastrophe, disaster, stuff like that, it went up like 1,000-fold. And it's since gone up every year, that it became, now that Russia isn't the enemy, Russia isn't the evil empire, the USSR is gone, how do we keep people sufficiently afraid of what's going on around them that they'll unite and look to us for the answers? And they said that's why there's a new, like, now we're at the point with the internet where there's a new cause every 15 minutes. Like there's no
Right.
attention span for it.
I mean, I think the place that showed the most out was on the Weather Channel, right? Where it's like everything became snowmageddon, and it's going to be the first ever Category 6 hurricane NATO,
Right,
something.
exactly.
Yeah,
No, they started
like
naming
my
shit
phone
like,
does this. The other day, it's like, we had some storms and it was like thunderstorm or whatever. And then the next day, like my phone, it showed a sunshine icon and it said dangerously high UV. And I'm like, you
yeah.
mean a nice day? Like it has to say dangerously high. Like I have to be uncomfortable about sunshine now. Like, come
Or
on.
I get an air quality warning.
Yeah.
You ever get those? Like
Oh
air
yeah.
quality warning, the elderly and infirm and people with immune disorders should stay inside because if you go outside, the air quality is going to get to you. And it's like, no, that's not a thing. Like, stop.
Yeah. Like the PM 2.5 got to like 61 and it sent you an alert. As somebody who has been to China several times and spent some time there, you do track the air quality at some points, and
Sure.
you know what all the things mean. But like, you don't really start getting that fussed about it till it gets up over like 150, which unless there's a wildfire or like a major building is on fire, you don't have that problem here. You
Exactly.
just don't have it.
And it's just another way, like, and it's funny because again, I was talking to the same mutual friend we have, and we were talking about the Iran thing and how we can't figure out what's going on right now because like everything is being said in it, like we're not talking, the deadline's coming, the straits are open, the straits are closed. Like it's so all over the place that even the people that are really pissed at Trump over the Iran war have just had to be a little bit more quiet because they don't know what to be pissed at him about.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, that might be a Trump strategy.
right.
He's also playing off the fact that Iran, like the thing that nobody's really talking about clearly is that Iran has no central leadership any longer.
No.
Zero. They've gone into, what do they call it? The mosaic defense posture or whatever, which means each province or whatever is in charge of itself. And Trump is playing them off of each other.
Sure.
That's absolutely the case. He wants to know who the worst ones are, who the most radical ones are. He wants the ones, there's some among them that want peace, that don't want to get bombed anymore, that they don't want to get their stuff blown up, and they want them to turn against the ones who are more violent. He wants the more violent ones to, go after the peacemakers. He wants that whole conflict. And I mean, this keeps resetting everything. Congress doesn't even know if it's a war, if it's a military operation, if it's that has by the Constitution has a clock. It keeps getting reset. So Trump ends up having more time on his hands to play with. Meanwhile, we saw the propaganda about what they're eating out on those boats. We all understand that they have to restock and reload. P.S. There is not like a Navy seaman on the back of a aircraft carrier with a fishing rod, making sure everybody has fresh fish. That's not how this works. And so Trump is my best guess, but I don't know. Nobody knows. That's the whole point. My best guess is that he is playing a very, very savvy game with a broken situation. And the confusion is literally part of the program. This is also part of how I went clear on all this. I'm like, maybe I'm not supposed to know what's going on here right now. Okay. You know, I'm not. Do I work in intelligence? No. Do I work in counterintelligence? No. Do I have a 3-letter agency talking? No. Do I need to know this? No. Is the sun shining? Is it April? Is it gorgeous outside? Abnormally warm and sunny days with a nice breeze. We almost never have a breeze here, and it's breezy every day and pleasant. It sure is. I'm outside, and Trump, you know, I'm not like Q trust the plan, but I trust Trump to be able to navigate this. I feel like Charlie Kirk, actually, where Charlie was all with Operation Midnight Hammer, like, don't do it, don't do it, I don't want to do it. Then the second is like, boom, those bombs hit. Charlie comes out and is like, President Trump is the man for the hour. I trust President Trump. I trust his decision making. I trust his leadership. I trust his intelligence and what he's doing. And so I've kind of gone into that space a little bit. Not like I just defend anything the guy has to say, but like he's doing a thing, man. Like, let him do it a little bit.
And let's see what the result is. Like, as of right now, the result has been what we wanted. So we wanted to stop them from getting a nuclear bomb. We wanted to decapitate their leadership. We wanted to degrade their missile program. Those things are happening. Right.
We wanted Podcastistan to completely reveal itself. That also happened. And I think Trump did that on purpose too.
Well, do you remember when Dan Bongino left the FBI, he said the reason he was leaving is he wants to take on the podcast bros. Like, he was going to destroy Podcastistan, and he felt he could do it better from the behind enemy lines. And there's been like a real effort since then of Trump and all the different people to say, we're not going to allow this online outrage factory to define our politics, because otherwise we'll never get anything done. Like, it's just going to bring us to a standstill, and we only have a little bit of time at this. Like, that's Trump's only got 2 years left.
And I think that's their purpose, by the way. I've said that from almost the beginning, after I stopped focusing almost purely on Christian nationalism and started focusing on the woke right writ large. And as it started to launch in 24 before the election, I was already kind of beated in on the idea that it's like, okay, Trump only has so long, and they're going to undermine. They're just going to bog that time down. They're going to split everybody, get everybody fighting with each other, make sure everything gets counter-signaled. So there's no unified direction of beat the left going on in anything that happens anymore. And so I mean, this is no surprise. I think this was an intentional, dedicated, coordinated operation that has been executed by people who have the skill, the know-how, and the resources to do it, some within the country and some outside of the country, that it was deliberate to undermine Trump's presidency. Sure. And including, I mean, after October 7th, the writing has been on the wall for Iran as it is. And so to undermine this eventuality as well.
I think a lot of these guys who were grifters to begin with, when they saw that they were not going to have the influence they thought they had with Trump, they thought that he would embrace white nationalism and Christian nationalism and all this. Oh, totally. And when he didn't, they said they're trying to do the opposite now. They're trying to make themselves endearing to Democrats. They're trying to shed that kind of background and come into the no, we just hate war. And
they're the tail that wanted to wag the dog, and the dog didn't get wagged, and they're trying to, basically go off and be the tail somewhere else.
Right.
Or pin the tail on the dog that we can actually wag, or just be a problem. It's like this narcissistic sour grapes thing. Oh, Trump couldn't become what we wanted him to be, so he can't. No, we can't have him. Nobody can. It's just it's really gross. But
you can also see the opposite when it happened on the opposite side. Remember, the Young Turks, specifically that the Fat Turk. He made a real effort to reform the Democratic Party with Democratic Socialists, right? And he ran AOC. They were very successful at first in getting far left people into office, but then over time he saw they had no influence. that
that's right.
that the party itself was not going to embrace this, and they weren't going to be the power broker. So what did they do? They turned against the Democrats. Everything was Biden is corporate this, he's war this, he's like they basically just those Justice Democrats, that's what it was called.
No, that's right.
They now can't find a Democrat they like. Right.
Their symbol looked an awful lot like a hammer and sickle turned into a JD with a star on it. Yeah.
I know. Would you imagine that? And so we have the model of what these people do when they try to infiltrate a movement and take it over for more radical politics. We know that they'll try to do the walk back, but now like you'll see it. They again, the horseshoe never lies. Right? Those same people, the Cherkee Uyghurs and the Anna-Kasparians and all them, now who are they allied with? Tucker Carlson and Glenn Greenwald and all of them.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, the know them by how they circle their wagons kind of gives it all away. And the thing is, of course, they're passing it off as that's because we're even smarter. And so their new psyop is, oh, left and right is a broken paradigm. Well, here's the fun part. Yes, it is. Left and right is a terrible way to think about politics because it had to do with where two particular factions happened to sit with relation to the king during the National Assembly, or in the National Assembly during the early part of the French Revolution. And so it doesn't, the funny part is the left side prescribes a politic, but the right side does not prescribe a politic. Leftism is actually conceptually sound because the people who sat to the king's left were Jacobins, and the Jacobins had a particular philosophy. And that particular philosophy metastasizes and it mutates through time. You get communists, you get Bolsheviks, you get so on and so forth. You even get fascists out of that, really. And then on the right of the king, you had this kind of motley crew of kind of religious conservatives. You had old school monarchists. You had counter-revolutionary who are like the reactionary radicals. And then at the same time, you had this other group of people that weren't even in the room that would amount to the French equivalent of classical liberals weren't even there, right? So they weren't on left or right. They weren't present. Some of them took cause with the Jacobins. Some of them took cause with the traditionalists, but most of them didn't have anything to do with it. And so it's really not a very good way to talk about things. But what they're doing is something different. They're like, oh, left and right, that's a busted paradigm. You're just caught up. That's what the Jews want us to think. So we'll turn on each other and hate each other. And what they're actually doing is trying to cover up for the fact that Tucker Carlson and Chink are on the same side and saying the exact same things. And it's being revealed, like that video that just came out with Nick Fuentes and
Anna Kasparian. Yeah.
Anna Kasparian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, not on every issue, but literally reading from, people are like, what? How could it be? It's like, dude, they get the same script. It's called a wire. There's a wire. They read the same wire. They put it in their own words. This is what journalists do. They're lazy. They go to the wire. The wire tells them the story. Some of them are so lazy, they copy paste the whole thing. Some of them are not that lazy and they change some of it so that it's in their own words. And some write their own article based on the thing that they read in the wire and get their facts and details from the wire. They're on the same wire about Israel, not about feminism, but about Israel. They're on the same wire. That's why they're using the same language. And so it's like, oh shit, you got videos of Candace Owens 2-3 years ago saying, I find myself agreeing with people on the left a lot more. And it's like, really? And you see Tucker saying stuff like this now. And it's like, you have him out defending socially conservative Maduro, who's a communist. And it's like, okay, the left and the right, the horseshoe thing's happening. So they're like, left and right aren't real, guys. Let's blow it out. That's a construction by the Jews to make you hate your countrymen. And we're the people who have figured it all out. Come with us. And it's like, oh my gosh, here we go. Same crap. And I know it's a thing because like I post on X and then the reason to read your comments. It's like the old saying is, the old joke, I think, I don't remember exactly how it's set up, but the guy goes to Russia and Soviet Union and he sees the guy reading Pravda and he says, oh, you can't read that. That's propaganda. And the guy says back, no, I read it because it's propaganda. Because you want to know what the state wants you to think. And so it's kind of the same thing here, right? It's like I look at my comments to know what the narratives are. And so I say anything about the left or anything about the right, or especially if I say woke left and woke right in a post, and it's sure as hell, James fell for the left right binary paradigm, some scripted bullcrap from the bots. I'm like, oh, this is what we're all going to get fed now. Left and right aren't real, and now we're going to get a third way politics. Third wayism has never been tried before, guys. Oh my gosh.
So funny enough, what you just said was it's also an old Yiddish joke. That one Hasidic guy gets on a subway, he sees another Hasidic guy reading the Palestine news, right? And he says, "What are you reading that crap for?" He goes, "Because if I read the New York Times, I'm an enemy, I'm evil, I'm this, I'm that. If I read this, I control the banks, I control Hollywood,
Right.
I control, like, why would I read that?"
Yeah,
Okay, James,
right.
I gotta run, but man, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you very much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Let everyone know where they can find you. I'm sure they already know, but let them know again.
All right, the website with the podcast and the articles and all the stuff is newdiscourses.com. Get your pen, newdiscourses.com. And the podcast is called the New Discourses Podcast. It's wherever you listen to podcasts, probably all of the places, certainly YouTube and Spotify and all of that, and Apple. And I am on social media at Conceptual James, and that is everywhere. Once again, Facebook let me make a new account. I was banned for life from Facebook, but they finally let me make a new one. So I'm back everywhere. You can follow me there. I only actually do it on X. Everywhere else it's aggregated. I don't pay the guy nearly enough for him to aggregate well, so you get what you get if you're not going to come to the right platform.
So the links are in the description, guys. You know where you can find me. You can find me on Twitter at Halsey English. And thank you very much, man, for coming. Everybody, will talk really soon. Thanks, guys.
My fellow Americans, tonight I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border.
In all honesty, a border wall or steel slats won't work. But great bodies of water will separate us from the horrible Mexican rapists. Introducing the 2019 Trump Great Border Moat. Stocked with the most aggressive penis fish, incredible man-eating alligators, and unbelievable genetically modified moose-cocked rape dolphins, as well as flying, migrant-eating sharkfish. So incredible.
I swore to protect our country, and that is what I will always do.